What's up guys, it's Will back again, and today's review is Alien Covenant. Alien Covenant is a sci-fi horror film that was directed by Ridley Scott and is a sequel to the 2012 film also directed by Ridley Scott entitled Prometheus. Well, Alien Covenant follows a ship referred to as Covenant heading out on a large-scale colonization mission. Covenant contains a crew of 15 members, with 14 of them being individual couples who intend to reproduce and help colonize this planet referred to as Origai 6. However, the Covenant crew eventually arrives on a seemingly ideal planet after they receive a mysterious transmission, and soon enough the crew realizes that they're in over their heads. Crew members start getting very sick very quickly, and the rest of the film is spent watching the Covenant crew attempt to deal with these unknown and extremely dangerous monsters we know as xenomorphs, while they also attempt to keep themselves, the colonizers, and the mission itself alive. Okay, so I definitely went into Alien Covenant expecting a quality film, but certainly not a fantastic one. I sort of expected it to be on par with the 2012 film Prometheus, which certainly satisfied me, but didn't wow me to the point where I ever felt the urge to watch it more than once. And I think Alien Covenant is pretty on par with Prometheus, if not just a ever so slight notch below, due to a few flaws in the construction of the story and mostly in the characters. One problem I had with Alien Covenant is that the characters are not nearly as interesting as they were in Prometheus, and the crew members don't seem to have anywhere near the chemistry that the Prometheus crew did. Michael Fassbender is great as a new cyborg model named Walter, but the rest of the characters have very little about them that gives them an identity. And I know some out there are going to argue that this film isn't really about character development, and I totally get that, but the problem lies in the fact that you likely won't care nearly as much about the characters when they're put in harm's way as you should, because they're never that interesting and they don't really have much personality or any sense of identity. It's not like the acting is bad by any means. Michael Fassbender is good, Billy Crudup is good, Katherine Waterston is good, and Danny McBride is good. It's just that these characters and this crew have very little sense of camaraderie, and that lack of cohesion was a little bit of a problem for me. This is most evident when they start dropping like flies and the surviving crew members mourn for their lost friend or even significant other for like 30 seconds and then move on. I think I enjoyed the work of Danny McBride the second most in this film behind Michael Fassbender, and maybe that's just because I paid the most attention to him because I wanted to see how he'd do in this kind of role, but he actually was pretty good. The problem though is that he's mostly relegated to the sidelines until the last act of the movie, which was kind of disappointing. But I don't want to give you guys the wrong impression. I still very much enjoyed this film. I do think it has some flaws, but I can't say that I wasn't entertained for the vast majority of it, because even though the story feels incredibly familiar and not super original or anything, I still found myself feeling that tension and suspense that Ridley Scott wanted me to feel. The different types of xenomorphs that show up in this film all wreak havoc on the Covenant crew in extremely violent and harrowing ways, and that's what you're purchasing a ticket to see for Alien Covenant. So in terms of its main purpose of delivering some scary and tension-filled sci-fi thrills, Alien Covenant certainly succeeds. I also found Covenant to be a very well constructed film from a visual perspective. There's a lot of really cool things that the filmmakers do with the lighting and composition of the shots that actually add a lot of tension and pure horror to this film. There are a couple CGI heavy shots, particularly in the first act, that don't look so great, but everything after that looks stellar. You come to Alien films for the sci-fi horror and visual spectacle, and Covenant delivers in both of those departments. Not to harp too much on Prometheus, but for those of you wondering, do you have to see Prometheus in order to understand and enjoy this film? The answer is no. While it would certainly help, Ridley Scott seemed to make a pretty concerted effort to tie Covenant in, but to also have it be its own film that you can enjoy independently of Prometheus. They do spend a decent chunk of time explaining what happened to Shaw and David, and I think for those of you out there that have seen Prometheus and want resolution to that story, you get that to an extent. They don't go too in depth, but I think overall you will get answers to at least some of the questions you may have. Okay, so one last con I have for Covenant, and it's the villain. As you may have expected, there's not just xenomorphs that are the threat here. There's a villain behind the scenes, and I just feel like their motives and their reason for being evil is just not fleshed out properly. There's a lot thrown at you with this villain, and I just don't think many viewers are going to grasp why this villain is doing the things they are. Some of you may not care, but for me, I was just a little let down by this villain's presence. But overall, I did enjoy Alien Covenant. It's certainly a flawed film, but an enjoyable one nonetheless. I thought it had some very good acting from a handful of its cast members, some fantastically horrifying sci-fi visuals, and a consistently scary and tension-filled story. Sadly, I also felt the crew had little charisma and camaraderie with one another, many of the characters had little to no identity, and the villain's motives were sort of murky. I'm going to give Alien Covenant a 7.5 out of 10 and recommend you see this one in theaters if you enjoy the Alien franchise and you're looking for another solid, scary outing. It's pretty much on par with Prometheus for the most part. So did you guys guys see Alien Covenant yet? What did you think of it? And if not, let me know why not. And also let me know your favorite sci-fi horror film of all time. It doesn't have to be an alien film, any sci-fi horror film would do. That's all for now though. This is WillFoxification signing off. See you in the next review.